and welcome to Guilty Pleasures, the show where we give in to pleasure, taking flight with a modern horror film to find out just how guilty we need to feel about loving or hating it. It was Jack's pick this month, and he's got us suiting up for World War II horror. We asked our adoring fans to choose between 2020's genre-bending Shadow in the Cloud and 2019's vampire horror film Blood Vessel. In another razor-thin online vote, Shadow in the Cloud just nudged out the competition to earn its tour of operation on this podcast. So come along for the ride as we earn our stripes and find out if Shadow in the Cloud is a soaring pleasure or a guilty sin that crashes and burns. Before we take flight, my name is Stephanie, and I'll be your captain for this mission. I'm joined by my top-tier crew members, Kelly and Jack. Now I'm going to ask my co-pilot, Kelly, to help us navigate this bird with some key background information. Kelly?
Aye, Captain. This movie was released in 2020. It was a joint production between the United States and New Zealand. It was written by designated shitball Max Landis and Roseanne Liang, who deserves a lot more credit and attention, probably, if only because, she's not Max Landis, from a story by Landis. But if you read up on it, it went through a lot of rewrites because of it coming out that he was a piece of shit and their desire to distance themselves from that Max Landis brand. This movie cost approximately $10 million to make. They're a little bit cagey and closed-mouthed about the exact amount, but that's the approximate. It's pretty low budget, all things considered. But it only made $1,060,738, so it fucking hemorrhaged money. Like, not surprising. There was no sequel greenlit. The Gremlin Strikes Back. It got pretty middle of the ground reviews. It even a little bit higher than the Metacritic score is 66. The IMDb rating is 5 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes 77. We can get into whether or not that seems valid. And the Letterboxd is 2.6. So it's pretty. This is a C student of a movie. Not great, not terrible, or at least so say the critics. We'll see what we say. Back to you, Steph.
All right. So before we get into our overall thoughts and impressions, we, being the consummate professionals we are, like to dig a little deeper and see if there are any fascinating facts or BTS intrigue about our film that we can share with our listeners. And Jack, that's where you come in.
Hey guys, radio check. This is Jack. Not a whole lot to be found on this movie other than the fact that, like Kelly said, it did go through a lot of rewrites because of the whole Max Landis situation. What I think is interesting, and we've got a little 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon going on here, because if you know anything about Landis, you'll know that his father is John Landis. And John Landis was one of the directors on the Twilight Zone movie back in the day. So when Twilight Zone was done and its run in the late 60s, in the 80s, they came out with the Twilight Zone movie, of which there were 4 segments, many of which kind of harkened back to original Twilight Zone episodes. The opening segment didn't, but his father, John Landis, is a director on this film. And in this film, on the 4th segment, is a movie remake of an old Twilight Zone episode called Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, wherein a gremlin is attacking a passenger liner and only one person can see it. So there's some interesting correlation here with the fact that the son of the guy that was directed one of the segments in that movie then goes on to write a movie which is really shares no small amount of DNA with something that his father was tied to. So, the whole interesting thing is, yes, Max Landis is obviously a human piece of garbage, but is he also a hack? Because right there seems to be obviously with Hollywood, you're going to get a lot of similarities. There's a lot of things that have been done before and it's in the vein of, but this one was like, dude, your father was in a movie and was part of a movie in which a gremlin attacking a plane is one of the big draws. So it's like, really, I found that kind of interesting. And then of course, on the casting side, we don't have a whole lot recognizable faces. And even when we do, they're not in it very much. Chloe Grace Moretz obviously is the draw. She's Maude Garrett, a WASP, Women Air Force Service pilot, which was a thing back in World War II. She's the heroine of the tale. Obviously, she's been in a shitload of movies. Let Me In, Kick-Ass 1 and 2, Dark Shadows, Carrie, and it just keeps going and going and going. We have Taylor John Smith. He was Walter Quaid, the dorsal gunner in The Bomber. He's been in quite a few well-known shows as well. He was actually in Insidious 2, Where the Crawdads Sing, and the television adaptation of Sharp Objects. Callan Mulvey, he was the captain, the pilot. He has also appeared in Zero Dark 30, Captain America, The Winter Soldier, The Children of the Corn remake, and Ford versus Ferrari. Outside of that, there's not a lot to be found on this film.
That means that we are at the fun part, which is where we get to get into this guilty pleasure and figure out if it is, in fact, both guilty and a pleasure. We're going to start with our overall impressions and any particular highlights or lowlights, if you will, that stood out to each of us. Who is chomping at the bit to go first? I think I know, but...
I think I know too.
Well, tabling my my overall impressions, I do want to address Jack's question of, is Max Landis a hack? By answering it, yup. I did do a little bit of research into Landis separate from, the allegations about what a garbage person. I don't think you can even call them allegations. He pretty much said, yep, I did it. But I was looking at his career, and pretty much all of his movies were met with bad reviews. So the only reason he's gotten repeated chances is because he's Max Landis' son, or I'm sorry, John Landis' son. And that is, to me, the definition of a hack is just nepo babying your way through mediocrity. That's my answer to your question, Jack.
No, and I mean, I'm going to further that, right? Because I'm going to further that with the fact that he did basically say, yeah, most of that stuff about me is true, which is okay. Yeah, we all knew that. I mean, obviously. And then he went on to say that, don't compare me to Harvey Weinstein and those other guys because I was nowhere near as famous. Not because, I didn't do bad shit, but because I was nowhere near as famous. So that was one of his defenses. So fuck you, Max Landis. The other defense that he has is that he was traumatized by what his father went through in the making of Twilight Zone when the actors died on set. I'm like, dude, were you 4 when that movie came out? I don't think
also,
you were on
his
set.
Father went through,
right? So it's not only is he trying to distance himself from the other guys who are pulling the same shit by saying he wasn't as famous as those guys, but he's also trying to then claim trauma for something that his father went through 30 fucking years ago. Dude, I mean, obviously human piece of shit, but times 10, because you're copping out in the worst possible ways. So fuck him, 100%. Fuck Max Landis.
I also don't think you can really say his father's the one who went through it. I think all of the victims of his carelessness are the ones who went through it.
Well, yeah.
Fuck John Landis also.
Exactly.
I love American Werewolf in London, but fuck John Landis.
Yeah. Yep.
You guys, I don't know. I kind of like Max Landis. I think that he gets a bad rap unfairly, and
listen to this devil's advocate.
I defend most things. I won't try to defend that. So
you had me for 0.5 seconds, and I was like, no.
No, I could tell she was trying not to smile as she was saying it, heavy on the air quotes here.
Well, I was trying not to crack, but I also didn't want it to go too far to where Kelly actually lost her mind and her head exploded.
She just logs out. It's just the two of us for the rest of the night. Kelly's like, fuck you guys.
My head would cartoon style explode, and I would just be sitting here, just a body.
Yeah.
Let me ask this question. Mm-hmm. Did you know about the history of the film before you watched it, or did you watch first and then then figure out who was attached to it?
I knew the history.
Okay.
I didn't.
So I did not either. I watched it first, and then when I did my homework to prepare, then I realized that Max was attached to it, and then I was like, oh shit, this is not gonna go well. I already knew even before talking to you that it was gonna be a real problematic thing for you, but I didn't know if you watched it going in with or without that knowledge.
I mean, I did try as best as I could to divorce myself from that, and to think, that this perfectly respectable Chinese New Zealand woman who directed it also, took a pass at it. I don't know how much of that was truly how much she wrote and how much of it was sort of a damage control kind of no, Landis wasn't involved. Wink, wink, wink.
Yeah.
So I'll say this. She came out and said she did a very extensive rewrite. whereas Landis came out and said it's about 90% his script. So
Yeah,
there
see,
is
I don't know where the truth lies.
definitely.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm
going to side with her on this one.
I would like to, because like truly, I don't particularly want to believe Landis.
Well,
it's just that
Exactly.
some of it spoke to me much more of a misogynistic kind of viewpoint. And that's
well,
why
I'm very
fence.
curious what got changed and how, because I thought, clearly there's a heavy emphasis on the misogyny, but I felt like it was supposed to be presented as men are the worst and women will save the world. So I felt like it was supposed to be a feminist film. And the fact that it was directed and co-written by a woman, not sure how much she wrote, but if she wrote a good amount of it, I feel like there was a feminist voice, but then you have Max Landis who was involved. So I was like, I wonder how it started and how it ended and, whose voice is what.
I think that's a really good point, Steph, because I think even the movie, if I didn't know Landis was involved, and if I didn't know that there was both a known sex offender and as far as I know, of perfectly unproblematic woman involved in the writing of this, I would still think it's a little tonally odd to me that I definitely get that they're trying to do a feminist message here, but at the same time, there's a little bit too much of isn't it jokey how these guys are talking about how they want to fuck her and how I don't know. To me, it felt a little bit too much like they were kind of winking with the guys at points. I also felt and this is not unique to this movie, so I'm not trying to particularly zero in on it. I'm just saying it's, for me, something that's a little problematic that you're dealing with an actual historical group of women who did something amazing. And she can't just have done that thing. She has to be an actual superhero.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, the point where she literally is scaling the plane. I was like, these women were already incredible. You don't need to make her into something superhuman. That she would have died, guys. There's no way around that. She would have
all the
died.
notes on that whole section because it's just the dumbest shit I have seen in a long time. And it's not
necessary. To me, it didn't add anything at all.
That's what made me think, I have that note. The belly gun in a plane. I've sat in one, not while we're flying, obviously, but I've sat in one, and I'm a big dude, and it's tiny for me. It would still be tiny even for her. It's a scary place to be in as it is. It's a scary place to be in when you're flying, I'm sure. It's a scary place to be in the middle of a fucking thunderstorm. So already you've got that she's done this, which the whole opening scene I think was really dumb too, because we're giving away we'll get to it, I guess, but we're giving away whole chunks of what plot that would be best reserved as kind of a surprise, I think. But she's doing this. She's already on this plane and worked kind of lied her way into this plane, and she's in the belly, the Sperry gun and the belly gun. That's already a huge thing. And then she's already a wasp, which is also a huge thing. And they're in the middle of potential combat, which is a huge thing. So all the pieces were already there. Same thing. I don't think that they needed to go that heavy into all that other bullshit because it's
right.
They could have really leaned into what's already there.
Right. She shot down the Japanese plane. Okay, I'm cool with that. You're saying this is the point of making this the historical point in time. But I mean, I'm not a physics major. I didn't study it, but I know that the wind, if you were to climb on the underside of the wing of a plane, would be insanely strong, and that a 100-pound woman would be knocked from it immediately.
So yeah, let's dive into that. Because that's because really, as far as the movie goes, the concept up until that point I thought was actually kind of interesting, because you don't really know who she really is, right? She's on this plane. She has something that she's carrying that's top secret that she's nobody should touch this. It has to stay upright. Leave it alone. And
we all knew it was a baby though, right?
Well, right. Yeah. But nobody else does.
I felt
right?
That was pretty obvious.
Yeah. Nobody else does though. And it's okay, so she's wounded. She's got a broken arm or whatever, and so here she is lying her way onto this plane amidst all these guys who are really 90% gross. Nothing but completely hostile, gross, and sexually aggressive towards her, And then there's all this drama that ensues, which, again, lean into that. It's good stuff. And then there's the gremlin, which really that could have, I don't know, again, that really steals from something else, but whatever. Could have been good too. But then we go full fucking insane bonkers where she is on the underside. So the belly gun gets shot out from underneath the plane. where she was locked in. And now she has to then get to her baby who's hanging in a toolbox from like a piece of the plane that the gremlin has torn apart because it wants her baby. And so to get to her baby, she climbs out underneath this plane, which is flying at something like 30,000 feet. Like you said, it's moving at a couple 100 miles per hour. And she then proceeds to Spider-Man her way across the underside of this fucking airplane, which, just so if anybody who doesn't know, because I work on airplanes are aerodynamic. They don't have places for you to hold on to in the middle of the air. You don't do that. Stuff gets caught on those things. That doesn't exist. So here she is climbing on the bottom of this plane upside down to go get her baby, and then gets her baby from the middle of the plane all the way to the wing, and then goes back with her baby now wrapped around her shoulder, strapped over her shoulder, all the way back to the plane. And then she does it not once, but twice. So it's, it's one of those things where, again, if they had leaned into the stuff that's really kind of historically accurate and or maybe stretched the truth a little bit and keep the gremlin, fine. Okay, I could have really been like, this movie's okay. But then it went royal full fucking stupid. And at that point, I didn't care because it was like, this movie just completely jumped the shark. Again, this is like Bait, where underwater electricity somehow doesn't work. No, I'm fine with monsters. I'm fine with the supernatural, but can we at least have the basic laws of physics still apply to humans, please? Because you fucking lost me.
Yeah, that was a huge problem for me, but I do think we all need to take a moment to applaud the quality of the bag that she put that baby in. Because boy, guys, that bag goes through it.
Yes, it does.
And that baby doesn't have a goddamn scratch on it.
No.
That baby is the biggest problem that baby faces the entire movie is when it's hungry.
And it cries exactly once in the entire film. That baby is that baby is like super baby because it does not give a fuck about what's happening around it.
That brand of bags, like their slogan should just be the best bag for smuggling a baby in.
Right.
Okay, Jack, you and I have totally dominated this. Steph,
sorry,
what were your thoughts?
I am already resigned to the fact that I'm gonna be a little chill on this episode, because as I suspected, do not share the same passionate distaste for this film that you guys do.
Oh no.
Here's the thing. When we've had this conversation before, and you guys know how I feel about things like things not making sense or things being really implausible. I do not think that this film at any moment expects you to buy that this is a very realistic portrayal of anything. I think this film just is at a certain point is like, fuck it. Like, we are going balls to the walls, nuttier than anything you could possibly imagine. We're just going to lean into, we've got this badass actress who I do think Chloe is pretty phenomenal. And awesome. I think this film is 99% her, which I think is a smart choice. And I've always loved her.
I agree with that.
I think she's phenomenal on this, and she seems to have a lot of fun with it. And she has already proven that she's really good at being this tiny little thing. Is such a good, believable action hero. She reminds me of Buffy a lot. She's just like this slight little blonde, pretty thing who can just destroy the world. I personally, even though, yes, at no point was I like, yeah, this is totally believable. I bought in. I was just like, this is fun and I don't care. And this is stupid and silly and over the top. I think it's supposed to be. I think all of that is very intentional. And I don't know. I think it's fun if you are someone like me who can just check your brain at the door and is like, oh, this is this kind of film. Okay, cool. Well, I'm not going to think about anything that happens. It's funny, Jack, I feel like every time we talk about a movie, I don't know what kind of life you've lived, but you're always like, oh yeah, I've built planes, or I've fought sharks, or I've been in World War II. It's no matter what we talk about, you have a frame of reference, and you're like, that's just not believable. And I'm like, Jesus,
I've done a lot of
stop
shit.
Knowing so much,
I've done a lot of shit.
That's your fault for being smart, right there.
I'm not opposed to checking my brain at the door. I'm not opposed to checking my brain at the door. But there's ways to do it better. Overlord. Okay, zombies in World War II.
Movie.
Check my brain at the door because it's the dumbest shit ever, but they do it well. They make it work. This one,
Okay.
And because I feel like I don't know. This was kind of a swing and a. I can't say it was a swing and a miss. I didn't hate the movie by any means. I think it was a swing and as she got to first base with it because, I applaud the effort of going World War II and taking a page out of history and expanding on it and giving it a horror bent. Wholeheartedly invested. I love World War II horror. Love it, love it, love it. Where I struggle is that it was just tonally imbalanced because you've got this human drama, which a woman and her baby trying to escape an abusive airman, on a World War II bomber in the middle of a war. That's human drama. Like, sign me up. Like, I am on board. Oh, and a little supernatural element. Cool. Yes. But then every one of the characters gets this little music video intro where it's like they mention their name and they have this red and black kind of
loved it
quick little thing, which I was like, no, because this is a World War II movie. And then it goes full, and hey, I love me some synth pop music. I love me synth score. Love it, love it, love it.
What was going on with that score?
But this score has no business being in this movie at all.
It's so bananas.
Yeah. Can I disagree and say I hear you say totally imbalanced?
Yes.
But at no point did I ever take it seriously for a second. Like, from the beginning, you're talking about the intro and how they introed everything. It seems silly and banana pancakes from the get-go. And so I was like, that's what I'm saying. Like, as soon as I started watching it, I was like, oh, okay, this kind of film, sure, let's do it. Let's fucking do it. Like, it wasn't like they led me astray with this like deep, dramatic tension, and all of a sudden it went nutty. It was always nutty.
No,
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Because I agree with both of you, and I want to explain why. Steph, I agree with you that it definitely like announces like, I'm gonna be stupid real early. Like it's like, hey, look at this dumb introduction I'm doing with all of these, and look at how dumb these men are. Like, they're instantly the stupidest boys. Like, you hate them immediately, which, to be honest, for me was a little bit of a problem. I felt like it would be better if at least a couple of them were like decent. They didn't even have to be like good, but like just decent.
Yeah.
But I do agree that like it pretty much said like, hey, maybe don't think too hard about this. But where I agree with Jack is that it bothered to ground itself in this historical moment in time. And it definitely is also saying to you, not look at the problem women have, but look at the problem that WASPs, which I kept thinking she is also a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, but I know that's not what that stands for. But look at the specific problem. Look at this domestic abuse situation, these things that are very serious and that are very, grounded in real world trauma and pain, and not just hypothetically in a specific moment in time that they then chase by showing footage of the actual people over Hounds of Love, which we'll get to at the end. It felt like to me that just kind of expected you to have a certain element of like genuine pathos, and there is absolutely not one moment of genuine pathos. And to me, I felt like this movie was trying to serve too many masters. It's a war movie. It's a feminist movie. It's a movie about a goblin who I forgot about for extended periods of time, but then suddenly, whoops, there's a gremlin. It's this kind of well, I should mention there. I'm with you, Jack. I didn't hate this movie. There were things that I thought were quite good, and one of the things that I thought was quite good was actually the decision to have an extended period of it just be Chloe in the little like bucket thing, and to just have it be a one-hander basically, where she's just reacting because she is a good actress. She's a powerful actress, and once she stopped doing that god-awful accent, which I did think, like, I know it was supposed to be fake, but I felt like it could have been just a tiny bit better since it is supposed to actually be fooling people. And as soon as I heard it, I was like, what is she doing?
Yeah.
And since somebody on the plane is Scottish, he would have heard an actual like English accent and been like, what is this bitch girl doing? Like, that's terrible. But putting that aside, I thought she was really good. I thought she gave a great performance.
She did.
Sold some really dumb lines. So I thought everything that just focused on her in that little like, Jack, what's it called? The little under basket thing? Oh,
the belly gun? The belly turret?
Yeah. I thought all of that was like really good. I thought it was a clever way to use a low budget, to really just
very good. Yes.
Focus that. Like, it's a really clever way of doing that.
Yep.
So that was something I liked. I liked the little vintage cartoon at the beginning.
Oh yeah, I did too.
It's probably not going to surprise anybody to hear that I'm a big fan of Gremlins, the Joe Dante movie, and that cartoon very much reminded me of, because I mean that's what all that's based on. So those are all things I actually did. I genuinely liked about it. Quick sidebar. I just wanted to say, I think it's funny that all of us kind of fit into archetypes, and that like Jack's this very pragmatic, real world experience guy, and Steph is this very, I like things girl, and I'm this very like tiny, angry woman.
Well,
we all have our little
things.
I like things. That I need a shirt that with Steph's face on it that says "I like things."
I like things. Yeah.
Yes. No, I don't know. See, I kind of have to disagree a little bit. I don't know that this was necessarily supposed to be bonkers, because some of those World War II like propaganda films and training films are really that dumb. But where it kind of made me wonder, because the only part in that movie where the men aren't complete fucktards and when they actually shut up is when she goes into her little rant about why she's there and what happened to her. And I'm gonna
very quickly interject, Jack, just because this is specifically relevant to what you said. I would otherwise would not interrupt you, but because it's specifically relevant to what you're saying, the only other time that they stop is when it's established that she's involved with a man on the plane, which is a classic problem for women. The whole, I'm going to harass you until I find out you've got a boyfriend or a husband, and then I'm going to respect you as a person.
Well, they even say that, oh, we wouldn't have talked to her that way if we knew that she was your girl.
Exactly.
Walt, So, but they shut up when she's talking about why she's there. And at that point, like, to me, this was, again, where the thrust of the movie should have been, is that she's escaping this shit situation by doing something a little dishonest and a little dangerous, but it makes sense. And you like, oh, I get it. I get why she's there. That makes complete sense. And it's that, to me, again, was the human drama element. I don't think this movie was necessarily, there are nutty parts to it. I don't think it was really always supposed to be complete nutty, because there are moments when it really, really tackles some heavy grounded shit.
I agree that it should have leaned in one direction or the other.
Yes.
It should have either been like completely silly, or it should have been completely grounded.
Yes. Same.
Sorry, Steph, what were you saying?
I mean, I personally look, and I obviously I'm gonna make allowances for people, and you guys are gonna be like, no, it's just shitty filmmaking, Stephanie. But I really don't think that you would construct an ending like that without having the intention of it being a nutty film. I do think those moments of seriousness are meant to ground it a tad and give it some, because I feel like if you're not invested in the characters at all, you just won't give a shit.
Yeah.
So they want you to give a shit a little bit. So there is a little bit of like, hey, there's some depth to this character. But I never thought it was meant to be like, and now this is a serious like character drama about like her plight. I thought it was just meant to give you enough to where you rooted for her and you cared about what happened. But again, I really don't think, and if they did intend it to be serious and then just really drop the ball in the end, then they really dropped the ball. But I feel like if you're going to make a movie about gremlins and and have that kind of ending that goes off the rails in such a huge way, I felt like intentionally, then I just never thought it was meant to be anything more than like a super fun genre bending action adventure horror film with a really good, compelling lead who's going to carry 99% of the film.
It just seems odd to me, though, then to bring in like themes of, again, domestic violence and intense sexism, like violent sexual assault levels of sexism, if you don't have some degree of like, and I do wonder if maybe some of that comes down to the idea of being rewritten, that maybe
I think
maybe
so.
One version of it was much sillier, and maybe she wanted to put in a little bit more to make the female character real, to make her have, a sense of like urgency and purpose and intentionality. And, I don't think that any of the individual movies are bad. I just don't know that I feel, to me, like they really rim together in a way that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I do think.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, please go ahead. I was just going to go on a little Chloe Grace Moretz tangent, and I can save that.
I want you to go on a Chloe tangent because she's the main attraction here.
I was going to say, I think she's really, really great in it. I was watching it and I was a little amused because I realized that I have the same problem. And it's not really a problem. It's just a kind of weird little hang up with Chloe Grace Moretz that I have with Selena Gomez, which is that they're both very good actresses. But I watched them both grow up, and I still think of her as a kid.
Yeah.
So like hearing her have this whole storyline about like having a baby and everything, I thought she did great. I just, in my mind, I was still like, oh, she's just a child.
Yeah.
This can't be happening to her. She's so young. She's just a baby.
That's more of a reflection of us getting old. It's like when you realize,
Yeah, I know.
like, oh shit, this is the girl from Kick-Ass. What the hell?
Yeah.
I know. 100% is that.
Well, it's like
not
watching
at all
Anna
her fault. It's
Paquin.
just,
It's like watching Anna Paquin in Fly Away Home and then watching her in True Blood. And it's like, oh, fucking hell. We are like so far away from little girl Anna Paquin anymore. Yeah, it's a little awkward.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I guess I feel like I understand the tendency to want to have, even if you're making a really like bananas film or just a really crazy horror film, to have a little bit of a message, especially as a female filmmaker wanting to give this a little bit of a feminist bent and give Chloe some like real agency and really have it be sort of metaphorical of like, look what women go through. Like, look at all the real life horrors they go through. And then this gremlin thing is just because the idea of a gremlin in the first place is a metaphor for like shit going wrong, things going bad.
Yeah.
And so this is just the literal manifestation of that. So she's already got the like metaphorical representation of like everything going wrong. And now she's dealing with the literal representation of it. And I think that's fun. I don't think it's, I mean, it's obviously serious subject matter. I think it's handled in a way that's not meant to like completely hit you over the head and really take you out of it and make you feel like, oh, now this is a serious drama. But I think there is something to be said for wanting to make those ties and give this film just a little bit of gravitas.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I agree with you. And again, I don't want to give the impression that I thought this movie was a complete failure, because I didn't.
Same.
I will say that for me personally, there was a point where like I can only listen to men be shitty for so long, and those men were shitty for so long.
Yep.
For so long. And like, as a woman who's dealt with, you know, more than her fair share of casual street harassment, at a certain point, it actually became almost triggering hearing these guys just like be fucking disgusting creeps over and over and over again. And I know we were supposed to feel kind of like Quaid was a good guy, but like his whole, I can defend her now that you know that she was with me. Like, no, you know, you could actually defend a woman before people knew you were fucking her. Like, you could just say like, hey, don't be fucking creeps, because she's a person, and you know, women are allowed to be humans and not feel grossed out all the time.
But I do think that's representative of the patriarchy, because I think a lot of men who have like casual misogyny, and this is a little bit more than that obviously, but like it's just so ingrained, and they have this like bros club thing, and then they feel peer pressure and they don't have the like, and I'm not defending it, I'm just saying that I think it's speaking to the fact that like it was so normalized when you're around your guy friends that you, especially during this time, it's still like that now, but I think it's hard to speak up, and it's hard to say, and again, I'm not giving them a pass for not speaking up. I'm just saying, I think that's part of, because I think this film goes out of the way to be like, when they, because you guys mentioned that like, oh, all of a sudden everything's fine. It's like when they think they're just talking amongst themselves, they're horrid creatures. But the second they realize like, oh shit, there's like a real person here and she can hear us, and oh, she actually has real problems, and she's not just this conceptual thing, then their demeanor changes. And I think at the end you're supposed to think like, okay, they're very misguided, but they're not like just terrible evil people. And once they
didn't work for me.
Yeah,
No.
I get it.
No, because they were still douchebags to her even when she was on the line. Even when she said, hey guys, I'm here, they were like, oh,
yeah, exactly.
For about 5 minutes, and then they went right back to it. Like it didn't,
it
didn't change anything.
I can't speak to the reality of what men were like then, but I kind of think that probably a lot more of that would have happened behind a woman's back instead of directly to her. I think the idea that they would talk that way when they thought she couldn't hear her is believable, but I kind of think, especially in the military, a lot of men would not say that about a woman to a woman. I don't know. I said
no.
I don't know.
Unfortunately, no. So it's
okay. Well, it's like I said,
it's
I
like
don't really...
anywhere else. Unfortunately, working with the military, there is still a huge, heavy sexist culture in the military, and there's still quite a lot of incidents of sexual harassment and assault, and women that are in the military committing suicide or leaving because they can't hack it, because it's not just coming necessarily from one or two people, but it's either coming from superior officers, or superior officers are turning a blind eye to it with the whole, oh, well, boys will be boys bullshit, you know? So unfortunately, no, you always wonder,
I appreciate your
we're supposed to look back at it like, I don't know, like we're supposed to look at these guys from World War II, right? Because we're like they're called the greatest generation, and I'm not ever going to ever diminish any of the shit that any of our service people went through in World War II. They had to deal with shit that nobody has had to see then or now, like awful stuff. But we're supposed to kind of hold them in this high esteem that they were all like, heroes and gentlemen. And it's like, no, a lot of them were fucktards, unfortunately,
Right. No, I understand. And like I said, I appreciate your firsthand lived experience of that. But I think then for me, the problem with the movie is that there is sort of a sense at the end that they want me to feel some sort of redemption for some of these men. And like, I can't,
no.
Especially like the Scottish guy, because he was so aggressively like, not just like pervy, but like truly sexual assaulty, and kept being like this dizzy bitch, this fucking broad. Like I did have a note that said something like, they're going to use as much slang for woman as possible just to prove to you this is the 40s.
They'll check off every box they can. Yeah.
It reminded me of when I was in college and I was taking creative writing courses. They taught you about authenticating details, which I'm sure you guys both know about. The basic idea that like you include small things that feel personal, basically, that are designed to put something in a specific place or time. So like, but also if somebody's like painting their fingernails, you'd say like, oh, she used red nail polish or something small like that. But there was always somebody who just like went way, way, way too far. And it was like, she painted her 2.5-inch long fingernails with demonic red nail polish that she bought from the CVS on May 1st. And like, to me, at a certain point, all of these words for all these slang terms for woman were just kind of like, guys, did you know this is in the 40s? It's in the 40s. Guess what? Guess when this takes place? It's in the 40s. Yeah. I was like, I get it, guys. We know.
I don't know. I like, obviously this is not a bold statement to say I'm not a fan of misogyny, and I'm not a fan of like patriarchy, and I'm not a fan.
You're not afraid to say it.
No, I'm not afraid to take a stand. But I also think that is the very definition of like what we talk about toxic masculinity. We talk about like the patriarchy stuff, and we talk about like indoctrination and cultural assimilation, and so much of our behavior is, and it's not a defense, and we should be better, but I think we just fall into these patterns of like, this is just how it is, and this is how guys talk, and this is like, and especially when you have this like really machismo, like lots of testosterone, masculine energy in a tense like war situation, and they are, because I do think if one person had been like, guys, this is really fucked up, they all would have chilled the hell out, because they would have like, it would have immediately changed the dynamic. But as soon
didn't
as
Quaid kind of do that?
He did. Yeah, he did. He tried.
Yeah, and I think it's subdued it a little bit. But I'm just saying that like with other people, with their bros around saying stuff, it just sort of, I don't even think it's like there's a conscious decision of like, is this right or wrong, or are we being dicks? And I think at the end, like, you're not meant to be like, oh, now you're just a good guy. I think you're meant to be like, they had this sort of awakening of like, oh, now I'm face to face with this woman, and now I see like what she's capable of, and I've like, she's kind of saved us all, and we've survived this situation, and now I realize how fucking stupid that like trivial conversation was, and the way that we demeaned her, demoralized her, and like, basically, what's the word I'm looking for? Like dehumanized her. I think they did feel a sense of like, that's really fucked up. But I think it took them going through that experience to even step out of this sort of, oh God, I'm having trouble with my words, but this force field of like this machismo energy that they're just feeding off of each other and not even seeing her as a person. And yeah, I mean, it is fucking hard to watch. And like my first note that I wrote down literally, question the first, why are men the worst? Because it was so gross, and it was so hard to watch and to listen to. But I do think there's an authenticity in that, like whether we like it or not,
there is. Yeah.
That you have to kind of not appreciate, but understand on some level.
My first note was, these guys are all assholes, and I can't wait for them all to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steph, I think you've written the first verse to a very good song. Question the first, why are men the worst?
Right. It's good, right?
One of my problems with this movie, and again, this is not unique to this movie. This is something that I have a problem with a lot of movies, is that I feel like all of the men were I think she was treated as more of a person once it was revealed that there was a baby. And I think that's something that a lot of movies and media does, that a woman becomes more valid as a character once there's a baby involved. And I fucking hate that.
But I think that's real. I think that's like,
well, no, it is real.
That now.
It may be, but I still fucking hate it. And I feel like the problem is the movie's not pushing back on it. It's not saying like, should that be how it is? Like, it's saying like, yeah, cool. Like, of course she's more of a person because she has a baby. And like, not only are we going to say she's more of a person, we're going to say she's a goddamn superhero. She's going to like fucking climb a plane. And okay, this part was really stupid, but I actually kind of liked it. So see, Steph, there are parts of this movie I like. It was aggressively stupid, egregiously stupid when she fell out of the plane and then the backdraft from the fire pushed her exactly in the exact, but like I actually kind of loved that. Like, but so good. I wanted it to have either that energy for all of it, that like silly, just lean into it energy for all of it, or the like. I don't think you're necessarily wrong, Steph, about the sexism and the casual misogyny being realistic, but that's a heavier movie. Like, if you're dealing with that, that's a heavier movie. Then she gets blown back into the plane and magically survives.
Looney Tunes style.
She punches a gremlin to death at the end. Like, that's a silly movie. That's like a fun movie. That's a fun, silly movie. But like watching a woman be sexually harassed for, I don't know, a solid 45 minutes is not a fun movie. That's
this movie didn't know what
Kelly's ripping her hair out movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think. Okay, sorry, Jack.
No. Go ahead.
Well, I think it's a bit of interesting commentary. And again, I'm sure just like you guys are like very much talking about the logistics and the plausibility issue. I always like read too much into things that probably aren't there, but there's something about the idea that, because we have this in the society now where it's like women are really just, their really only worth is that they can bring life into this world. And, you know, we're going through this now with all the like laws, and we're not going to get into politics, obviously, but just control over a woman's body and the idea that you're really only valuable if you are a woman and say like, I don't want kids, or that's not for me, then suddenly like you just don't have any worth. And that's a real pervasive point of view. And yet women do this miraculous thing, which is bring life into this world, which is it is an act of sort of heroics. And there's a lot of like strength involved in that gets minimized. And it's like, on one hand, we're like, women are only good because they bring life in the world. And yet they're still very weak and very stupid and very like not nearly anything compared to a man. And it's like this, I think I liked that it took that aspect of like, yes, she's a mom and she's going to great lengths to protect her child. And also she's a real life superhero, because I think moms on a very just normal level are superheroes in a great way. And this just amped that up and like took it to an 11 and said, yes, she's a badass. Not necessarily because she's a mom, but that certainly is part of it, is that like, hey, let's like start to realize that the fact that you care so much about women giving birth, but then you think that they're just nothing at all. It's like, no, the fact that they can do that and what they go through to do that, to bring a child into the world and to keep a child safe and to raise a child and to still in a lot of cases like work and do all the other things that men do, is pretty freaking heroic and amazing. And we should recognize that. And I like that it used that as a metaphor. For me, I read it as that way. I thought that was really
You're doing
cool.
so much heavy lifting. I think it was a
metaphor, but I think
I know.
You said dialed up to 11. This was dialed up to like 50. Because I'm all about that life. Like my mom, single mom, raised me, did all the cool shit, brought herself up in a man's world and kicked ass at it. Love it, love it, love it. I do agree with you on all of that level. Having had kids, obviously not me, but with moms and having all that stuff, it's amazing. It is heroic. It's amazing what women's bodies go through to grow children, and then to give birth is like, it's incredible. And I'm all for. I love the concept, because you hear it all the time of women going through like to save their children. They kind of do turn into somewhat of a superhero, where they lift a car off a baby, or they do something that's just incredible. And I'm all for it. I love it. And I think that's fantastic. And I think if the movie had really kind of placed more emphasis on the fact that this gremlin is after her baby and she's going to do everything she can to save it, I'm fine with that. But it wasn't dialed up to 11. It was dialed up to Looney Tunes 50. And it's like, and then at that point it's doing it.
Say that
this
like
is just
it's
me.
a bad thing.
No, but this is just me. At that point, it's doing a disservice, because now it's saying like, this is way too overboard. Like, we got it. She's a mom and she's going to protect her kid, but Jesus fucking Christ. Like, can we tone it down a little bit and make it a little more like realistic? Because it's not at that point, they're not even beating you over the head with it. They just set off a nuclear bomb, said, look at this, she's a superhero. It's like, whoa. Hold on now.
To be honest, I'm kind of with you, Jack, but I also kind of feel, and maybe this is just the whole female who never intends to have children thing. I feel a little bit like she shouldn't have to be a superhero. Like, she's already done something that's above and beyond. She shot down the Japanese plane. Like, I feel like the idea that this movie kind of suggests is that for a woman to be respected by a man, she has to like, and look, I'm not necessarily saying it's wrong. I'm just saying I don't think the movie has the, I don't think it has the depth to support the complicated notion of for a woman to earn the respect of a man, she has to do it backwards and in high heels, you know, like,
right.
I don't think that the movie is working that hard. I think it's much more trying to be a silly, like, fun movie. But then underneath it, there is this message that the only way these men are going to respect her is if she does something that is impossible. It is superhuman. And the only way she can do that is if there's a baby she has to save. And like, I'm probably digging deeper into it than warrants, but like, I can't help but read all of these things because it feels really insulting to me in a lot of ways. This like idea that like, they only respect her after all of this. And like, even then, I mean, the Scottish guy tells her something like, protect the baby, don't be stupid, or what are you, stupid, or something like that. And it's like, no, you're still only a person to him because you were an incubator. And that made me legitimately angry because I feel like the movie kind of was trying to say to us, no, like, look, he's a good guy now. He's trying to protect the baby. And I was like, no, he's still a bad person. He's still a shitty guy. And I don't know, it didn't work for me.
Thank you. That was a much better way of saying what I was trying to say. From a viewpoint that I can't reach. So thank you so much. But again, Steph, I'm not trying to say that I hate this movie. There's parts of this movie that I'm like, that I was all in on. I love these small stakes. We talk about it sometimes, small stakes stories where it's just people in a place. And like you said, for the large part of the movie, it's just her and she carries it. And that's awesome. And it's people in this place where they can't escape, right? It's like Alien. It's like, you can't get off the spaceship, y'all. Like you're here, you're stuck. So I love it. I love when you take ordinary people and put them in extraordinary situations. Absolutely. Sure. Sign me up. Again, it pinballs so much that I get this kind of tonal whiplash that I didn't sign up for because not that I can't enjoy bonkers shit, but if a movie is going to be this, I kind of want it to be that and not, oh, but it's also this, but it's also this, but oh, but it's also this too. It's like, whoa, like let's narrow the focus a little bit because you get this like scope creep where it's just so much, it's trying so much, it's trying to keep all these plates spinning and none of them are really spinning. They're all just sitting there. And it's like, maybe you should have narrowed the focus a bit.
Let me ask you a question. At any point during this film, were you bored?
Yes.
Okay, really?
Yes. Yeah, a little bit.
When were you bored?
I mean, only a little bit,
but it was riveting.
I felt like, to me, it went on a little bit long when she was in the chicken pot?
The chicken
hatch, yeah.
I felt like, to me, that went on just a little bit long because it became apparent, not because I felt like she wasn't compelling, because I did think she was compelling, but because it became apparent to me that they were moving towards the next act. And it just felt at a certain point like they were delaying that move to the next act to maybe just pad the running time a little bit. I can't say it was a long time that I felt that way, but I did feel a little bit like, okay, I see where this is going. So like, can we just get there maybe a little bit quicker?
And I wouldn't say that I was bored. Again, like, no, I wasn't bored. I didn't hate the movie. I'm fine with stupid. This movie took stupid to a whole new level, and that I was not fine with because it did not start out. I mean, take the animated little thing outside of that. It didn't start out stupid. It started out very stylistic with her like walking on the runway, seeing something, and then like the fog lifts and the plane's right there. Like, this movie, like at several points, oozes style, and I love it. But if you're going to ooze serious style, you kind of need to lean a little more into that, and then it just goes completely off the rails. And so that's when I was like, yeah, I wasn't bored, but I was definitely like checked out because of how stupid it was.
All right, interesting. Well, I guess it sounds like we are really like. Speaking of teeing up the next act, we're about at the point where we're going to talk about where we think this ranks and how we classify it. before we get there, does anyone have anything else that we haven't talked about that you specifically want to say about this film other than giving your opinion, your final rating?
Yeah, I want to talk about. I want to talk about her hair.
Okay.
I want to get into hair chat.
Let's do
because
it.
this is something that I find, again, not even remotely unique to this movie, but it's something that makes me crazy in horror movies and action movies in general. She's got perfect finger waves through the entire movie. They're just gorgeous. She is so beautiful through the entire movie. There's a point where one of the guys, like the only likable guy besides Quaid, is saying something about like, are you a plain girl? Like the girl back home? And I was like, no, she's like fucking gorgeous. She's not plain at all. And you saw her. You literally saw her. So no. But her hair is so great the entire time. Even after she has climbed on the underside of the wing of a plane to retrieve a baby, her hair looks great. And it's so stupid, but that makes me bonkers in movies. It makes me totally crazy. Like, fuck her hair up a little bit. Let her look bad for 20 seconds.
And see, I had a similar note because, again, having been in planes, especially planes
you had a note about her hair?
Like, no, well, yeah, duh. No, I don't even notice that shit. So I love that Kelly does. What I notice is that she's not grimy, that none of them are grimy.
Yes.
So you're in a World War II plane that is actually seeing action and she's shooting a gun, which is grimy when you do that, especially like in this little insulated bubble where you're shooting two heavy caliber weapons. Planes are grimy. Especially World War II planes that are taking off from some remote airfield. And she is, again, I saw it just in a different way. She's perfectly pretty the entire time. And it's like, no, you spend a couple hours in a plane like that, you're not going to be pretty. You're going to be sweaty, greasy, nasty. And I hate that movies, again, if you're going to go in to make this, you're going to put them in this little bucket in the air, at least make them look like they're in a little bucket in the fucking air. I hate lazy filmmaking where they can't even be bothered to like make their people not pretty. It's
also,
like,
she's been like knocked around and she should have bruises and blood all over her. And she
does for like 2 seconds, right? When she gets scratched and then you never see any of that stuff again. It's like,
exactly.
I hate filmmaking like that because it's like, again, especially like I would think coming from a female filmmaker, I would think that she'd really want to kind of, and this is just my opinion, I would think she'd kind of want to drive that home. It's like, look, we all know Chloe Grace Moretz is pretty. We know it. And she shows up in the movie starting pretty. Fantastic. Great. You have your pretty actress. Ugly her up a little bit. Make her look.
Yeah, let her look like she's gone through some shit.
Exactly. Make her look like she's gone through some shit because you wouldn't know it by the end of the movie after she's gone full Mortal Kombat with that gremlin in the water, which is a whole other movie. She pulls
the sleeve off.
You know? She pulls her sleeve off.
Rip her sleeve off.
You know,
I laughed so hard when that happened.
Right?
I laughed
and I wanted like the Mortal
Kombat
Kombat announcer to say like round 1 fight. That's what I wanted because that's at that point what that movie was at that point. And she still looks like she just got out of her trailer. Like, come on, please.
All right, let me say this. You guys aren't wrong.
I love this.
I love how she always caveats that.
She's teeing it up.
So I'm gonna give you some truth bombs here. So I'll go to the office, right? And I'll spiff up to go into the office. I obviously want to look professional. I'll do my makeup and my hair and I'm wearing decent clothes. And I leave the house thinking like, all right, this isn't so bad. And I literally sit at a desk all day. Like I'm not running marathons. I'm not doing any heavy lifting. I'm doing nothing but sitting and in meetings and talking to people. And I will get in my car to leave. And I will look in the mirror and I'm like, what in the actual fuck happened to me? Like, how do I look this disastrous when I did nothing?
Okay, but Steph, how many gremlins do you fight during a day?
Well, metaphorical or real?
And how many planes are you hanging off of going 300 miles an hour?
But my point is that while I do agree and I'm like, oh yeah, like I get messed up doing nothing. There are these women, these crazy ass women whom I feel like you can put them through the ringer and you can do like they can be on a plane. Because, I don't know if you guys have ever get on a plane. I don't know what being on a plane does to somebody, but that's another thing where I will get off of a 2-hour flight and be like, what the fuck happened to me? Like I sat there. How do I look so distressed? But women that manage to look glamorous no matter what they are being put through and what is happening, and their hair is always flawless and their makeup is always perfect. And believe these women
That's
exist,
because they're fixing it repeatedly throughout the time.
I don't know. I just think there might be some marvels of medical or modern science or whatever.
No, they're going into the bathroom and they're fixing their makeup and their hair over and over again.
No, it's like movies where you have these guys out on an extended period of time and none of them ever grow a fucking beard. It's like, oh, are you in the middle of this horrific situation where you have nothing? Somehow you're shaving? No. Mm-mm.
Yeah, they're just fixing their makeup and their hair throughout the day. That's all.
Yeah, agreed.
They're cheating the system. They're cheating.
There you go.
I don't know. I feel like some people just have really good genes. And it's
no genes are that good. No genes can make up for like smeared makeup or frizzy hair. That's just not how genetics work. I love that you think it is, but okay. So I have a couple more things. When the plane is about to blow at the end, I said, everyone's an idiot but Maud. Aren't these guys also trained pilots? Shouldn't they have realized that the plane was going to explode?
No, unfortunately, no.
Okay.
So you'll have like your pilot, you'll have your co-pilot. A lot of those guys are from Midwest towns. They're like, hey, I'm going to go in and join the military and hopefully I get a posting somewhere where I get to drive a tank or I get to cook. And like, oh no, you're going to be you're a tiny guy. You're going to be a dorsal gunner in a B-52 because you're little.
Okay.
They've never been in a plane.
Asked and answered.
No. Yeah, they don't know. No.
I mean, one of them is the co-pilot, so it seems like maybe he should have.
True, he should. And then again, but you are also trained because again, those planes, I mean, they're weapons. They're weapons everywhere. You've got bombs, you've got all sorts of stuff. You do have jet fuel, you do have oxygen. So I mean, it's not like they're unknowing of the danger of fire in a plane. They would know that. Like they may not be pilots.
That's all I'm saying. Like, shouldn't they have some sort of knowledge that like this is totally trained?
Yeah. If there's a fire in an aircraft, unless you're in the air, you get the fuck out. Like, I don't care if it's a military aircraft or not, you leave. That's just common practice. You get out.
Okay. My next question was, why does the gremlin want the baby?
And see, I wanted that movie. I wanted the movie to go into that because I thought that would have been really compelling. The baby as their own? Like, yeah, well, like I that's what I was really hoping it would go into because like, here's this innocent that is being brought into this shitty situation. And I really thought for a minute that we're going to go into that we're going to dive into that there's some reason that this thing is so interested in this baby, but but the movie never did that.
And my last note was, none of the men go to help her. Walt is the only one holding a baby. When she goes to fight the gremlin at the end, I felt like there are 3 men. One of them could have been like, hey, I'll hold him down while you punch him or something like that. Instead of just being like, I guess we should let her do this by herself and just stand here and watch with our thumbs up our asses.
No, it was Mortal Kombat. She didn't tag him in. So.
Okay, well, you got me there.
And I think maybe at that point they realized she's like about 1 billion times more capable than all of them combined.
Sure, let's go with that.
Maybe it was a moment of awe, like a moment of respect of like, you are the chosen one. We are worthless, stupid, dumb men.
I do also have a note that just says, there's no time for smooches. Apparently was my reaction to the one kiss that Maud and Walt shared. I don't think I'd want to kiss right then. I'd be like, hey, we can do this later after we both had several showers. And
right.
Yeah, the baby's not in a bag anymore. Though, again, great bag, top-notch bag.
I have the note that this movie's tagline should be "Woman hangs from bottom of a plane while saving a baby." That should be the tagline. Like that's.
I think that was the elevator pitch, movie, honestly.
Like, yeah, that's what you're getting into when you watch it. You're not getting a World War II drama. You're not getting a horror movie. You're getting a woman defying all laws of physics and climbing on the bottom of a plane with her baby.
I think that this movie was greenlit just on that pitch. Honestly, like they were like, "Hey,
probably so."
You want to see?
I'm going to have a note.
Do something. Cool.
I'm going to have a note that the segment of the animated movie Heavy Metal did the whole horror in a World War II bomber far better than this movie ever did. Even though that movie is very problematic and doesn't hold up very well today, that segment, if you want some World War II drama where people in a World War II bomber are having issues with something supernatural, just watch that. You'll have a much better time.
I think you could argue that a lot of The Wall by Pink Floyd does it better too.
Yes. Well, yeah, that's sacrosanct. Yeah.
The whole When the Tigers Broke Free sequence, the movie has a lot of moments that are really powerful, actually.
Yeah. And I will say, voters, we love you. We love our audience. I really do wish that Blood Vessel had won in this voting.
I mean, I can honestly say I watched them both, and I'm glad I watched them both. I was going to watch them both no matter which one, but like I'm glad I watched them both. I got very, very different experiences from both of them. I did have, I'll say, a little bit more fun with Blood Vessel. It was a little bit goofier. There were more characters to actually like root for. It's a little hard when you really legitimately only like one character. Yeah. And Quaid had a couple of redeeming qualities, but not enough. Merrick, the guy, the slightly more innocent guy, he was okay, but still, like, especially since for most of the movie, these characters were literally just voices over a comm. Like, it was really hard to get invested in anybody besides Chloe Grace.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I didn't watch Blood Vessel, and I still need to watch it. I've heard really good things about it. I was a little worried that sometimes, like, if a movie's really good, it's not that fun to talk about because we're just like, yeah, it's good. And at least this one gave us plenty to dissect and argue about. So I think it was a good choice. The listeners did pretty good.
No, I'm excited. And I was really, really pleased with the fact that none of us had seen any of these movies before.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we're going to get a lot of that. I just don't, we're not going to get a lot of that. Between the three of us, we've seen a lot of movies. So the moments where like none of us have seen a film is going to be rare. So I'm glad that two went head to head that we'd never seen before.
But maybe our next film you won't have direct real life experience with. We'll see if we get one. Probably not. You probably
if
will
it takes place in space, maybe.
Oh, we should do Jason X.
Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
Oh boy, is a guilty pleasure for sure for me. Like that movie. Woo. Now I want to switch my pick for next month and do that one. Okay, so do we feel like we're ready to give our final rating at this point?
Sure.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, guys. So we're at the point where it's time to wrap up, and we've got to say what we think. Is this film truly a guilty pleasure? Is it more guilty than pleasure? Vice versa? Where do we stand? Anybody care to go first?
I think since Jack picked it, he should go first.
All right.
Okay. All right. So I tend to feel like I say this a lot, where I was very middle of the road with this. There were aspects of this film that I really, really, really liked. There were aspects of this film that I really didn't. I do not like it when a film switches, like pulls the rug out from underneath me and kind of goes in a completely different way tonally. So I had a hard time with that. I love synth music. Synth music has no business being in a horror World War II film. Even though I love the soundtrack and I'm pissed that I can't listen to it on Spotify, it had no business being in this movie. The little character segues or intros where you see them for a brief second as their name gets mentioned has no business being in this movie. The weird camera rotation when she's on the bottom of the plane and all of a sudden now it's the camera's upside down and she's right side up, and it's very clear that she's now standing or like leaning on a cage with a fan blowing up underneath her. Has no business being in this movie. I wanted more from it. I didn't hate it. I will never watch this movie again. So I can definitely say that for me, it was not a pleasure. It was not the most god-awful thing. And I'm not sad that I watched it. I'll watch anything with Chloe Grace. And she really did do well in this. It's hard, I think, for any actor to be stuck in such a small environment for such a large part of a film and be compelling, and she pulled it off. So, my hat is off to her, but this movie is very, very guilty, very little pleasure.
Kelly, do you want to go? You want me to go?
You can go.
All right. Well, for me, I think when you say guilty pleasure, this to me is the kind of film that is like the very definition of that. Because is it objectively a good film? Nope, not really. But is it garbage? No, I think it is. So it's nutty. And when I say nutty, I mean it is nutty. And you've heard us talk about it. But for me, it's kind of the wildly fun kind of nutty. I found it hugely entertaining. And I think that if you're okay just throwing plausibility out the window, you don't worry too much about physics and like, does this make sense? And narratively, I'm not sure that's the right choice. If you just throw all that out the window and you're fine with that, and you just want to lean into some over-the-top hijinks, I think it delivers. I think it helps that Moretz is such a phenomenal performer. And I don't think she has any trouble at all getting us captivated and invested, no matter what kind of chaos is being thrown at her and at the audience. It's stylish. I really love the score. Yes, again, it's part of the, like, this film is absolutely nutty and off the rails. But again, I had a ton of fun. And the reason I asked that question about were you ever bored is because I was never bored for a moment. Like, no matter what was happening, I was like, and again, most of this takes place in, like, it's one character in this tiny little location without, like, a whole lot of, like, effects and crazy things happening. And I found it incredibly captivating. And then when it unleashes and it gets her out of that little tiny confined space and it really goes balls to the wall, I think they have a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun watching it. So for me, like, this is not Shakespeare and it is not Citizen Kane. It is gratuitous popcorn munching fun. And I think if that's what you want, it really achieves in that area. So for me, I think it is a guilty pleasure.
My turn?
Yep.
Nah. I'd say watch it if you want to, by all means. Like, it's not like it's also like under 90 minutes. So, you know, if you want to watch it. It's not going to be the biggest waste of your time. I've watched much stupider. I would have liked if it were stupider, to be honest. I mean, Steph's argument in its favor was that it was not trash. And I would say that, to me, that's an argument against it. I would have preferred if it were trashier. To me, usually the sign of a good guilty pleasure is that after it's over, I feel like I have to tell people, like, you have to see this movie. Like, you're not going to believe how fucking wild this movie was. And I didn't feel that with this movie. I just felt like, okay, that's a movie that happened to me. I will say this, though. It does end with Hounds of Love by Kate Bush, which is my favorite Kate Bush song. So did I watch this movie through the credits? Yes. Yes, I did. Just to hear a song that's already in my music library again. So, you know, watch it for that, or, you know, just go onto Spotify and listen to Hounds of Love. Whatever works for you.
But do stay through the credits, please, because I think that we need to take a moment to recognize this little known piece of history with these women that were actually serving very dangerous and important roles in World War II that even me, as kind of a plain nut, only knew just the bare minimum about. So if you do watch it, you know, definitely watch through the whole credits for a good song and for a kind of a little brief history lesson.
Awesome. All right. Well, another one where we were polarized and split on. In this case, it is it's a lot of times 2 against 1. In this case, it's you 2 against me, but that's okay. It's not as tragic.
I got to know what that was like last time.
Yeah, I was gonna say not as tragic as our no notes, but which was I still have PTSD from. But
oh my gosh, yeah.
For what it's worth, I'm sure the entire internet was on your side and against me. So.
Well, this time I think they'll be on your side because of your sexy voice that you've decided to use for this one.
Lounge singer Kelly. Yes.
So, like, I don't care what she's saying. I like the way she's saying it.
I need to get
Billie
her
Holiday
Pall
Kelly.
Malls and have another. Yep.
All right. So before we sign off, we do have a little teaser for next month's episode, and it is back to being my turn to pick. So I get the enormous honor of choosing our October film. And of course, it's Spooky Month, which I feel like is a lot of pressure in and of itself, as much as we all love Spooky Month. It's also my birthday month. So I have decided, I really agonized over this decision, but I decided I'm going to be a little shamelessly self-indulgent with my pick. If you do listen to our spinoff show called No Notes, which I really hope you do listen because it is phenomenal, then you know that my pick for October's No Notes, which is a film that I think is flawless and which affected me in a really deep and meaningful way, I chose Pig. And one of the reasons I did it is because it gives me an excuse to talk about the cinematic love of my life, Nicolas Cage. But because I'm a greedy little gremlin, I have decided to turn the show into Nick Cage month. And that means for October's Guilty Pleasure, you're going to be choosing between 2 Nick Cage horror films. And I had to pick films that I have not talked about on any recent podcast, which really narrowed the playing field here. But I have chosen Prisoners of the Ghostland and Renfield.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
I thought for sure you were going to say The Wicker Man, and I was going to get really excited.
I thought so too. Yeah.
Well,
I love that piece of shit.
I do too. And I've talked about it a lot. And I figure a lot of people have heard people talk about it a lot. So we'll do something a little bit different. But yes, Wicker Man would be. It's not a no-notes film, but I could actually defend that film for a while and talk.
I've got pages of notes, but most of them are about how great it is. I mean, how many movies do you get to see Nick Cage repeatedly punch women in the face?
Yeah, it's good stuff. And it's got a great little backstory. Sometime we should talk about it, but
we should.
For this one, Prisoners of the Ghostland and Renfield is what we will be choosing between. So it's gonna be a lot of Nick Cage in October, and I for one am pretty thrilled about that.
I have seen one of those movies.
No, do not speak of it.
I will not. I will keep my mouth shut.
I don't know if it's going to be okay if you hate on Nick Cage in any capacity, no matter what.
I don't know if even if I didn't like the movie, I wouldn't. Well, no, that's not true. I was going to say, even if I didn't like the movie, it's unlikely it would be because of Nick Cage. And in the case of The Wicker Man, I do feel like he's a big part of the problem in that movie in the best possible way.
Yeah, we might have to change archetypes, and I might have to become an angry little woman, like when you're like hating on my movie. I'm like, no.
I want to be clear, though. Again, I love The Wicker Man. I think it's amazing. But the point where they hit him and he actually yells, "Ow, my knees!" I laughed so hard.
So it's so entertaining, and I've seen it a billion times, and it never gets any less entertaining. God bless that movie.
It's so good. It's so bad.
It's really a miracle of filmmaking. The fact that it exists at all is quite a treasure. But yeah, hopefully we will bring that same energy to whatever film we end up talking about. Which one? Don't say what you think about it, but which one have you seen? Renfield?
Renfield.
Okay.
Same.
And neither one of you have seen Prisoners of the Ghostland?
No, I've not seen that one.
I don't want to skew the votes, even though I do, because I don't care about ethics. I do kind of hope we talk about Prisoners of the Ghostland, because there is a shit ton to talk about in that film.
I kind of do too, because I liked Renfield.
Oh.
I know I wasn't supposed to say that.
Spoiler alert.
I thought it was pretty fun.
Me too. Obviously, but yeah, so we'll see where we land, but I'm super excited about it. If you want to be able to vote on those films and help us decide which one of those two we do talk about, you're going to want to make sure you're following us on one or more of our social channels. You can vote on, this is a Morbidly Beautiful podcast. So if you would like to keep up with the show and vote on our social channels there, we are morbidlybeautiful.com. Our social channels, we are going to include all of that in the show notes, so you can figure out all the different places that you can follow us. You'll be able to vote on all of our platforms. Same thing for all of our personal platforms. You can follow us all individually. Hopefully that you will do that. We each post about these films. Sometimes the voting of these films, often multiple times. So there's like multiple rounds of voting. So you have lots of opportunities to kind of chime in and help steer the course of the next episode. But that's our show, folks. If you liked what you heard, please consider liking, following us, rating and reviewing us, and generally just heaping on the love wherever you choose to listen. Until next time, this is the Guilty Pleasures crew signing off and reminding you to give in to pleasure wherever you can, and don't you dare feel guilty about it.
That would be really fun.
Is that the next podcast we're doing? The other podcast that we're doing?
We are going to get to 45.